from the media, to members of uMkhonto weSizwe that are present. Let me start off by giving insight in terms of why we're here today. We're here today to give the nation an update on the outcomes of a meeting that was held by the national officials. And we will then obviously share with South Africans the way forward and what the outcomes of that meeting and those engagements were. But before we continue, I need to first introduce the leadership, and I'll start off with our president, President Jacob Gelesegese Zuma. Welcome, Mr. President. And then move on to, on his left, the chairperson, Comrade Nathi Nhleko. To the president's right, we have the deputy chair, Commander Spilwane Mkocho. And then to his right, we have the national organizer, Comrade John Lela. At the end, we have the Treasurer General, who is Mr. Limba, Commander Limba Mbiake. And behind me, we have the head of the presidency, Makasela Mzobe. I am Samuel Ndlela, the national spokesperson of uMkhonto weSizwe. I'm not going to delay any further. I'm going to call upon the chairperson who's going to read out the press statement. And then from there, we'll do the usual, take questions and answers, and then close off. Thank you. Chairperson.
No. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am to read out the statement on behalf of the national officials of uMkhonto weSizwe, the party. Following the executive meeting held on the 28th to the 29th of July 2025 in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. The national officials also met with several stakeholders to consolidate the MK party's resolve to unite all progressive forces in South Africa. This statement emerges from a confluence of political, organizational, and geopolitical developments that have demanded clarification from the party's apex leadership. As the nation commemorates the Women's Month and prepares to celebrate the National Women's Day tomorrow, the 9th of August 2025, uMkhonto weSizwe, the party extends its heartfelt well wishes and revolutionary salute to all women of South Africa. This month serves not only as a reminder of the courageous struggles of women who marched against apartheid injustice in 1956, but as a call to action to the continued fight against patriarchy, inequality, and socio-economic marginalization. The MK party recognizes that the true liberation of our country is incomplete without the full emancipation of women and children. In this regard, the MK Women's League has a historic and urgent duty to lead from the front to conscientize, organize, and mobilize women and society at large towards building a just, equal, and non-sexist South Africa. Through grassroots activism, policy advocacy, and bold political engagement, the MK Women's League must serve as the vanguard for structural transformation, ensuring that the voices of women are not just heard, but are central in shaping the destiny of our nation. We'll now reflect on the key highlights from the meeting of the national officials, The meeting reaffirmed the founding principle of MK, the party, the spear of the nation, as the guardian of African liberation, dignity, and sovereignty. The MK party recognizes that South Africa's struggle for total liberation is far from over. The chains of colonialism have merely changed form. The land remains stolen, wealth extracted, the masses of our people impoverished. Our party considers itself not merely as a political party, but also as a spiritual and revolutionary vessel mandated by history and the ancestors to complete the total liberation of our people. The meeting further reaffirmed the following connotations that embodies and define ourselves as a party. On the African connotation, the name uMkhonto weSizwe, the spear of the nation, reflects the historical, cultural, and spiritual legacy of African resistance. The spear symbolizes resistance, protection, justice, and an ancestral authority. It represents the historical legacy of African warriors who defended their land, dignity, and sovereignty against colonial invasion. The spear also embodies justice and order, traditionally carried by leaders as a sign of their duty to uphold truth and protect the community. On the spiritual front, uMkhonto weSizwe is a divinely sanctioned movement. It channels the mandate of our ancestors and the unseen to liberate the Africans and Black people in general from spiritual death and moral decay. Its spiritual programs are designed to cleanse, unify, and reawaken African consciousness and cultural values. From a revolutionary perspective, uMkhonto weSizwe is a people's army and political movement. It is a direct continuation of unfinished liberation. It stands for radical transformation, economic justice, land restitution, and dismantling colonial capitalist structures. To the colonizers, to the colonizer and his proxies, uMkhonto weSizwe is a threat to their imperial ambitions and imagined permanency. But yet the party is equally a unifier for all progressive social and political forces in South Africa, not because of lawlessness, but because of the party's capacity to unseat white monopoly capital and neoliberalism in this country and beyond. The meeting also resolved on the program of action, one, to mobilize all its structures and fraternal partners to prepare for a decisive victory, electoral victory, in the 2026 local government elections. Two, strengthen revolutionary consciousness within its ranks through dedicated political education sessions across the party value chain. Thirdly, improve accountability across the party by enforcing sound reporting and performance systems. Fourthly, stabilize and grow our resource base through mobilization of resources within and beyond the party machinery. Fifthly, we are to deepen organizational coordination and unity. The last point, the need to institute an iterative and continuous upstream and downstream strategy planning process within and between each leadership segment in the party. On the Government of National Unity, we would like to highlight the following failures of the so-called Government of National Unity. The first point is on the economic malaise and unemployment, a gateway to social death. South Africa's economy remains trapped in a spiral of stagnation, marked by alarmingly high levels of unemployment and stunted growth. In the first quarter of 2025, the official unemployment rate soared to a devastating 32.9%, while youth unemployment, our future, remains entrenched at an unconscionable 46.1%. These are not mere statistics. They are the lived reality of millions who wake up each day to hunger, disillusionment, and despair. Despite grand promises, the Government of National Unity has failed to offer a coherent or effective jobs plan. The economy limps along with a meager GDP growth of just 0.6% in 2024 and a decade-long average of only 0.7% per annum. This is a death sentence for any meaningful economic transformation. Instead of ushering in industrialization, localization, or a jobs revolution, the GNU has normalized economic stagnation and deepened the wounds of structural unemployment, making poverty a permanent feature of South African life. On the cost of living, a hidden taxation by another name, as the cost of living skyrockets, the GNU continues to show its contempt for the poor. Their initial proposal to raise VAT to 17% was a brazen act of class warfare, one that would have placed unbearable strain on the working class and impoverished households already battling under inflation and food insecurity. Only after intense and widespread public backlash did the government backtrack, but not before revealing its true intentions. The temporary retraction of the VAT increase left a 75 billion rands gaping hole in the fiscus, which now threatens essential public services. The GNU's failure to plan or cushion this blow is emblematic of a government more focused on appeasing markets than protecting people. In reality, this retreat does not signal a policy reversal, but rather a delay in applying more regressive fiscal measures. Taxation through stealth paid for by the poorest among us. On corruption, sabotage, and infrastructure decay, under the GNU, the cancer of corruption continues unabated. Far from eradicating state capture, the GNU merely recycles its actors and scripts. Cadre deployment remains the modus operandi, with local municipalities now functioning more like criminal syndicates than centers of service delivery. Basic infrastructure across the country is collapsing. Electricity blackouts remain a brutal reality, disrupting hospitals, schools, and the economy at large. Despite the GNU's legal wrangling with Eskom's energy crisis, there is no tangible improvement in power reliability. The decay is so entrenched that Transnet's rail dysfunction now costs the country 1 billion rands daily, a staggering indictment of state mismanagement and infrastructure sabotage. While the GNU differs and quarrels and arteries of our economic lifeblood are being severed. on international blunders, isolation and job carnage, the MK party notes with deep concern the United States' decision to impose 30% tariffs on South African exports. This measure appears to be a punitive response to South Africa's principled positions on international justice, particularly our unwavering support for the Palestinian cause and our constitutional commitment to economic transformation. We view this action as an unjustified attempt to exert pressure on our sovereign democratic choices. This development must serve as a turning point rather than yielding to external coercion or pursuing failed austerity measures. South Africa should respond by accelerating industrialization, strengthening economic ties within the African continent, and deepening partnerships with the BRICS nations. Our long-term prosperity lies in building an inclusive, resilient economy, one that prioritizes the needs of our people over the preferences of global powers. On poverty, inequality, and education in free fall, the GNU has spectacularly failed to tackle the scourges of poverty and inequality. Arguably, the most damning indictment of its tenure. Today, a staggering 63% of South Africans live below the upper middle income poverty line, with millions trapped in generational deprivation. Income inequality remains among the highest in the world, exacerbated by elite capture and the systemic dismantling of redistributive policies. The education system, which should be the cornerstone of transformation, is collapsing under the weight of underfunding and neglect. Despite looming demographic pressure, 1.2 million additional learners projected by 2030, the GNU's education budgets are shrinking in real terms. Quality education is fast becoming a preserve of the wealthy, leaving the majority condemned to a cycle of mediocrity and marginalization. A nation that abandons its children has no future, and the GNU is doing just that. On the political paralysis and self-serving coalition infighting, the so-called government of national unity has proven to be nothing more than a chaotic amalgamation of self-serving elites. It exhibits neither unity nor vision. Instead, the cabinet is paralyzed by factionalism and infighting, most notably over the VAT debate, which caused the unprecedented postponement of the national budget announcement. This level of dysfunction is not just an embarrassment, it is a crisis of governance. The MK party has consistently warned that this makeshift coalition, stitched together without principle or purpose, was doomed from the outside. We are now witnessing the fruits of that unholy alliance, deadlock, division, and a government that governs in name only. The GNU is not a solution. It is a symptom of systematic political decay, incapable of delivering on even the most basic promises of democracy and dignity. The government of national unity has taken our people's suffering, packaged it in rhetoric, and sold it as progress. But this is not leadership. It is betrayal. We reject vanity-driven diplomacy, fiscal cruelty, systemic corruption, and infrastructure delay. The MK party exists to break these chains of despair, to restore dignity, and to build a South Africa that serves the many, not a patchwork coalition that enriches the few. The national officials, as the leadership of MK, met the leadership of the African Transformation Movement to consolidate our partnership towards the 2026 local government elections. Our parties have formed a joint task team to craft a comprehensive partnership model for approval by our respective highest decision-making structures. Our shared principles include: 1, the two parties agree that South Africa needs a new governance system that will focus on completing the liberation project based on principle of affirming African value systems and solidarity. 2, the primary aim of the partnership and other future extension of the membership of the partnership will be to attain a 2/3 majority to take over government and complete the revolution. 3, the primary motto of this partnership is Vota Sonke, we vote together, based on an understanding that things are not about individual parties, but about attaining a reasonable threshold necessary to effect total liberation of our people. 4th point, the partnership will seek to fully restore the role of traditional leadership and inclusion of kingdoms in governance systems, elevate customary law, which is foundationally restorative against the Roman Dutch law, which is punitive in nature, and further elevate religious leaders that should also be involved in politics. We also had a meeting with the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, which was convened at a request by the traditional leaders belonging to Contralesa to meet with President Zuma to receive counsel and draw on his wisdom regarding critical challenges currently confronting the nation. Contralesa's delegation was led by its Deputy President Kgoshi Nyamalala Pilane and Secretary General His Royal Highness Zolani Mkiva. The meeting decried the rising political instability in South Africa, fragmentation of unity among progressive forces representing the poor and downtrodden masses of our country, the resurgence of ultra-right-wing tendencies, pervasive criminality and entrenched corruption within government and state institutions, as well as other serious social ills that are likely to undermine and erode the meaningful gains accrued since the dawn of democracy in 1994. Both organizations agreed that the liberation project is yet to be completed in South Africa, and further that the institution of traditional leadership has for the longest time been undermined and relegated to a spectator in the political governance domain. The meeting resolved to encourage all traditional leaders to take advantage of the 2026 local government elections to restore people-driven governance. On the international front, The Constitution of uMkhonto weSizwe vests responsibility for international relations and foreign policy engagements squarely with the president of the organization. In this regard, the president of uMkhonto weSizwe attended the inauguration of President Ngwema in Gabon and held bilateral meetings wherein the MK party reaffirmed its full support for the revolutionary governments of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. These nations remain the final frontier in the total and irreversible liberation of Africa from neo-colonial shackles. We are alarmed by the incoherence and indecision in South Africa's current foreign policy. Our country has tragically lost its geopolitical standing, humiliatingly reduced to a junior partner at Western tables, as evidenced by the disastrous spectacle at the White House and the economic sabotage of the 30% tariff hike imposed by the Trump administration, a punitive blow to our economy. In continuation of international engagements, the president recently visited the Kingdom of Morocco. This visit builds on discussions initiated in 2017 with His Majesty King Mohammed VI with the view of normalizing relations between South Africa and Morocco. Hence, we reaffirm our position that granting the people of the Sahara region a local governance within the sovereignty state of Morocco is a practical proposition to solve this 50-year-old conflict. This Moroccan autonomy proposal is beginning to be the most supported position by other governments in Africa, including the Sahel region countries, which President Zuma will be visiting before the end of the year. During the visit, the president toured the Tanga Mediterranean port, the Africa's best performing port. MK is negotiating internship opportunities for the unemployed South African maritime graduates. The president also held a meeting with the chief executive officer and the executive of Renault Group, exploring collaboration for unemployed mechanical engineering graduates. Thirdly, we engaged with Mohammed VI Football Academy, aiming to establish partnerships with South African youth football academies to learn from their scientific world-class development model. Lastly, we met the Speaker of Parliament and all political parties represented in Morocco, studying their coalition government model, which is stable and effective, unlike the incoherent DA-ANC coalition of disorder in South Africa. A delegation led by our Deputy President and leader in Parliament, Dr. Mandla Slope, will soon return to Morocco to deepen this work and explore traditional leadership governance systems. We make it unequivocally clear our foreign policy must serve the national interest, not narrow party political agendas. And in this regard, DECO was fully aware of our visits, and our embassies offered appropriate diplomatic support. We would advise DECO to desist from acting as an ANC propaganda arm. The president will continue to raise South Africa's flag across the world has a revolutionary obligation to serve our people. On the issue of the recent Constitutional Court matter, we are of the view that the Constitutional Court has failed our people. It has chosen technical evasion over confronting the deep constitutional crisis facing our country. By deferring the matter to the High Court, it delays justice and accountability. This abdication leaves the executive unchecked and the people unprotected. The efforts of and by General uMkhonto and other brave whistleblowers have been ignored. Nevertheless, we remain undeterred. We have issued a formal letter to Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa demanding answers on why taxpayers fund two police ministers and an illegal commission of inquiry. He is required to respond to 15 critical questions by Friday, the 8th of August 2025, or face further legal and public action. We are also writing to the Chief Justice requesting an urgent release of reasons for the court's decision. We shall pursue all peaceful means to enforce accountability and uphold constitutional order. We now take this opportunity to clarify our position regarding the former Secretary General. The leadership of uMkhonto weSizwe has noted several statements and utterances by the former Secretary General, who was removed from the position recently. The leadership of uMkhonto weSizwe had considered these utterances and actions and arrived at a conclusion that the former Secretary General had not only publicly defined himself or themselves outside the ranks and ideological line of the MK party, but also seriously violated the trust placed on them as a member of the party. In this regard, the decision has been taken to summarily terminate the membership of the former Secretary General, and a formal letter of expulsion was transmitted to him on the 15th of July, 2025. uMkhonto weSizwe will not entertain any further exchanges on this particular matter. Lastly, on the MK party's path to power, the uMkhonto weSizwe as a party is the vessel of the final phase of our liberation struggle. We are marching towards power, not just to govern, but to liberate. We are building brick by brick, word by word, village by village, institution by institution. South Africans have increasingly affirmed our stance on the GNU, a Trojan horse of recolonization disguised as unity, funded by white monopoly capital and implemented by a coalition of regressive forces. We say no more. MK stands as the last hope of the African child, the worker, the youth, the traditional healer, the church, and the forgotten majority. Our eyes are fixed on the 2026 and our hearts are on the people. With your support, we will rise, not as rulers, but as liberators. The spear of the nation has risen once more. Let those who have betrayed the revolution tremble, and let the oppressed rejoice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, for a comprehensive media statement. We will now take questions from the media, and we'll do it in a round of 5. So we'll start with 5 at the back. I see a hand. Natasha, 2. Mologo, 3, 4, 5. Okay. We have a roaming mic. Thanks. If you could just please state your name and the channel or publication that you represent. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Zolega Kodashe from Newz Africa. I wanted to get the MK Party's reaction to the letter that has been sent by President Cyril Ramaphosa over the letter of demand that was sent on Monday. I understand that there was a letter of demand that was sent with a deadline of 10 a.m. today. The President, as I understand, has responded, not acceding to the demands by the MK Party and its leader, and instead says that those details that are sought are readily available and that the MK Party has already concluded that his conduct in relation to Police Minister or Minister uMkhonto, as well as the acting Police Minister, are unconstitutional and unlawful. Did the MK Party see that letter, and can we just get reaction given the fact that the deadline has expired? Thank you.
Thanks for that. Second. Right. It's Natasha.
Hi, thank you. Hi, it's Natasha Puri here from SABC News. I just have a couple of questions. In regards to the former Deputy Secretary General, I believe you all know, just moments before this briefing, there was a letter that was circulating that she has resigned as the Deputy Secretary General of the MK Party. Just your reaction on that, and do you perhaps fear that more members might actually jump ship, perhaps from the MK to Maibuye? You mentioned Floyd Shivambu, you've terminated his membership. But I'm just interested in knowing, former President Jacob Zuma, have you perhaps engaged him? Has he sought your audience at all? And then you mentioned in your statement the meeting with Contralesa, but there's a grouping also of traditional leaders that have said that they are cutting ties with the MK Party because they feel as if they are being used as political pawns. Has the MK Party actually reached out to them and spoken to them? And then you also mentioned the meeting that you had with the ATM, and you mentioned the Comprehensive Partnership Pact. Can you perhaps now detail, if any, modalities around how you're going to be working together ahead of the 2026 local government elections? You've mentioned also in your statement your stance as the MK Party on the US tariffs, but now we know that the South African government, through President Cyril Ramaphosa, had said that all doors are still open for negotiations, right? Do you think, and are you confident as the official opposition that perhaps a deal would be made to actually reduce those 30% tariffs and to avert the bloodbaths of over 30,000 jobs? Thank you, and apologies for the many questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Muluku Mloto from ENCA. I have several questions, but I will try to be quick. To the former President Jacob Zuma, I just want to understand, considering the fact that at the time when you were at the helm of the African National Congress, the position has always been that the people of Western Sahara must be granted their independence. I want to understand, at what point did this change for you? The second question is, there has been, I just want to understand, are you by any chance as the party receiving any money or funding from Morocco? In terms of the leadership turnout, if you were a company, you would be considered to be in crisis. I mean, I personally have lost count of the number of secretary generals, organizers, and staff. Do you have you been reflecting on what could be internal issues perhaps that may need to be attended to, perhaps in order to arrest this particular trend? Lastly, you are speaking about, and correctly so, about the deepening poverty, the decay in the state-owned institutions, and the systemic corruption. A lot of people will agree with you there. But some of you have been at the pinnacle of government before. These issues, are you saying that in your previous responsibilities or roles, you are taking no accountability whatsoever? Is it your argument that you want us to believe that these issues you are correctly raising started after former President Zuma left office?
I'm covered. Thank you.
The third hand.
Yes. My name is Saeed. I'm asking this question on behalf of the Morocco TV channel, Media. My question is to President Zuma, is to what extent might your party's support for Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara is going to impact the broader political stances within your party and among other influential forces here in South Africa?
So can you just repeat that? I didn't think we got it clearly.
To what extent might your party support for Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara is going to impact the broader political stances within your party and among the other influential forces in South Africa?
There's one more. Over there. There's the fifth hand. Are you covered?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
I would also ask that members of the National Leadership Collective also do tackle some of the questions. I did not get your name, Cecilia. Cecilia. All right, Natasha. So ngaze ngamnguli mlagi. That's this. You asked the question about, it's just that I couldn't link it up very well, but you asked the question about the DSG departing. Is true. We have also seen that. We must also take into account that people individually, and otherwise they do make choices, their own sort of choices at any given point. So we're okay with that. Towards the end of this session, we will also announce the whole question of how we're dealing with the issue of leadership and leadership reinforcement, so that you'll be better clarified. For an example, so what are we doing with these particular gaps as we have them within the leadership collective and so on. The question of the ATM, I think you also asked the question about the African Transformation Movement, the modalities and everything else. The starting point is that we have this joint working arrangement in the first instance, because that they will also go much more into detail about operational issues and technical sort of details informing modalities, for instance, that the two parties would have to adopt in approaching local government elections and any other matter of national interest. As we had indicated, that they will report regularly to the leadership collective of both parties, the African Transformation Movement as well as uMkhonto weSizwe. Let me also just deal with the area of uMkhonto. Okay. And you seem to think that the question of changes at leadership level represent what crisis? If we were a company, yeah, we are very fortunate that we are not, but also even companies, a responsible one, would not view it that way. It would view it as part of the learning process. We just existed for how many months now? 18 months or something, whatever, I don't know. Now, in that process, there's a lot of learning that we have got to take into account as part of our developmental process, for an example. Now, we hope that with the changes that are going to be made, because maybe free of charge I can volunteer this thing and just tell you, for instance, one of the major weaknesses has been that you attract people to come and perform a duty of public administration, right? Of course, you need public administrators with social consciousness. That's what should inform the question of having a Secretary General into position. Now, we seem to have had problems on that particular front. Now, when I'm talking about public administration, I mean your major focus as a Secretary General is the question of development of standard operating procedures, for an example, and many other regulatory sort of instruments that have got to be put in place, including the whole question of how do you factor in mechanisms that have got to support the work of the organization on an ongoing basis, right? That's the work of a Secretary General. Of course, such a person has got to do that. Also informed by a required degree of social consciousness and so on. So I disagree with you when I'm not good to see that as a point of instability. It's an undesirable situation, of course. I'm not saying that's what we should have. But if you are in a circumstance where as an organization, something does not work for you, no, you must correct that, right? Now, in fact, because you spoke about companies, in the corporate sector, it is an accepted thing that you will have a strategy developed, but at the level of implementation, something else comes up. You have an imagined sort of strategic kind of diversion, and is acceptable. And I'm sure also you say to come from NCA. Go and ask them, they will tell you the same. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call on the head of the presidency to respond on the questions regarding Morocco. The man himself.
Thanks, spokesperson. Greetings to the media and the comrades. Any functioning mind changes its position when presented with new facts, scientific facts, and new realities. Now, the reality is the issue of Morocco and Sahara did not start now to be entertained by President Zuma. In 2017, in a delegation I was part of that went to the African Union, where Morocco was readmitted as a member of the AU in January. Soon after that, later in the year, President Zuma had a meeting at the behest of King Mohammed VI of the Kingdom of Morocco to present where their frame of mind was as a country and how South Africa could possibly help in resolving this problem that this year has lasted for over 50 years without any practical solution. That is why in 2018, South Africa reopened its embassy in Rabat, and Morocco reopened its embassy in South Africa to be fully fledged embassies instead of being downgraded to the level in which they were. When uMkhonto weSizwe was formed, President Zuma received many invitations at an international level. The last meeting we had about one of the countries which got problems, we can't at this stage, was yesterday. Members of parliament all over the world, leaders of the world, continue to seek guidance from President Zuma because they've lost confidence in the leadership of South Africa to handle the complex matters of the African continent. Now, President Zuma has a responsibility to lead the debate on areas where he believes South Africa should reconsider its positions on those matters. That is why on the question of Morocco and Sahara, upon being approached by the embassy and the leadership and other countries, and having considered all issues about the unification of Africa, that we can no longer afford to balkanize our continent into small and viable countries when we are confronted with arrogant USA and the West like this. That's what informed President Zuma saying, we have the same problems here at home, where a small group of reactionary Afrikaners want to have their own state called Cape Colony. In the same country, we have Orania that want to present itself as an alternative state. If we are not careful, this problem of a group of people who identify themselves as a tribe wanting to be a fully fledged state will come into our country. Now, MK presents itself as the legitimate voice of progressive forces in South Africa to lead the struggle to unite Africa to be one. And we felt that this burning matter that has lasted for 50 years in the continent must be a starting point to say, yes, the people of Sahara have suffered for the longest time. They wanted their own country. But the challenges we're facing as a continent cannot allow us to have many more countries than we already have. Let the comrade be given autonomy to self-govern like we have in our own country, provinces. You can pass the laws relevant to your conditions, municipalities, but maintain the sovereign integrity of Morocco as a country. Now, this one of money, when you can't explain things scientifically, why people have changed their minds, and you don't have better arguments to tell them why they must not change their mind, you must start throwing those stupid insults that we are getting money that we have not received. I've been fortunate to be part of the engagement from the beginning. There is no money promised, no money given, no money requested. We have tabled here the outcomes of the many progressive engagement that President Zuma had with the leadership there to open channels for South Africa to trade with a very strategic country geographically in the continent. Now, it's not true that we have sold out the revolution. It's not possible. The country's foreign policy is directionless. And President Zuma and MK have taken a responsibility to lead in that regard. And when we lead, we expect those who can lead to attack President Zuma, attack MK, but the kind of messages we're getting in the continent tells us that we're on the right path. Specifically on this one of Sahara, those who take time to research the latest development, the position presented by MK is beginning to be supported by more than half of African states currently. Not historically, currently. Now, we'll continue to lead. By the time the comrades join us, we'll all be celebrating one and united Africa led by President Zuma. Thank you.
I will take the question on the response from Mr. Ramaphosa. Mr. Ramaphosa responded on time.
Yeah, that was the call.
And I think that's important. It demonstrates that he takes President Zuma seriously and uMkhonto weSizwe very seriously. He responded on time. But sadly, his response, he's running away again from answering the questions. Basic questions that we've raised with him. The questions we raised was, he said he's appointing Professor Kachalia as per Section 91(3)(c) in an acting capacity. There is no such thing in the Constitution that allows a president to appoint someone in acting. There was no such thing. It was a simple question that was asked. We then asked him, at the point at which he then appointed Professor Kachalia, he refers to him as a minister designate. Which one is it? Acting minister, minister designate, or minister? It's confusing. So those are some of the questions that we asked him. But again, we can't expect more from a person who himself is a constitutional delinquent. Because all that he's ever demonstrated to date is constitutional delinquency and nothing else. The way forward, I know, is some of the questions that have been asked. We will obviously take it in consultation with our lawyers and make a determination with the leadership as to what the next steps are. But I think what's important is that it must be stated, Ramaphosa responded on time to our letter. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, Program Director, ladies and gentlemen. I need to deal with the one last part of the unless they still want to ask some questions.
We still going to respond to something.
No, because I needed to deal with the last part regarding the. Yeah. Okay. And I need to deal with the directive by the president that I must then announce the leadership collective. I'm informed that the president remains the president. I don't know what the clapping is all about, but I'm starting my announcements, okay? And that the deputy president, Dr. Sope, remains the deputy president, all right? And that we have had some gaps in the leadership collective. The Secretary General is one particular position that is vacant, and it's now going to be filled by Dr. Bongani Mngwango. Now, Dr. Bongani Mngwango has a 35-year executive experience. He's a former chief executive officer at Sanlam Healthcare, a former chief executive officer at Netcare 911. He was also chair of, maybe still is, I don't know, of the Kwabe Traditional Council. So he must then come this end, come to this end. Hello, sir. Sir, we'll move.
Thank you, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. For the... Okay. That's my name is in Towas of Online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for the Deputy Secretary General, she has quite a huge experience in both the public sector and the political management space. Comrade Nomsa Dlamini. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Now, I do appreciate why there is Lentlowo Mekon. You know, she's gonna make a contribution in improving the public face of this table. Okay. Yeah, we're exactly with beauty. That's it. Now, one other change, comrades, that's being effected is that the current national organizer is moved over to a portfolio to manage and coordinate policy coordination, Comrade John Lela. Now, and therefore that leaves the area of national organizing vacant. We then have a comrade who has an experience in local government and the public sector, and we think that that experience is going to augur quite well for us as an organization in approaching the 2026 local government elections. Comrade Alec Nkuna. Okay. Welcome. Thank you very much. Comrades, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot two other particular positions. The deputy chair remains deputy chair. All right. Comrade Import. And of course, the Treasurer General, Comrade Mpia Kelimba, remains Treasurer General. I'm still going to ask the president about the national chair. I'm still going to ask him about that. But having said that, comrades, we expect the leadership collective to assist in developing and institutionalizing the organization. And that the major part of work is around policy development, which is the area that Comrade Lela is going to take charge of. But also critically, the organization must know how it works and how it has got to work. And it is only through technical sort of interventions, as I said, your procedures, your systems, your this, that, and so on. And that's the central focus of the SGO. And that all of us, as part of the leadership collective, we are not the equivalent of the president. We are there to reinforce and bolster the public image of uMkhonto weSizwe, and that image rests with the president of the party. And that's why he deals with so many things, including the issue of international relations, and so it goes. So I thought, let me just say that it's only the president that can confirm my situation. Thank you very much.
Amanda, congratulations to the new leadership. I'm sure you are wanting to ask questions again now. I can see. With a raise of hands. 1, 2, oh, Million Guardian. 3.
My question was for the paralysis that we see.
Oh, your question on paralysis. Paralysis analysis is the problem. You're the third. Okay. The first question. Is there someone at the back? The fourth one.
Thank you. I'm Khawelo Magolego from UFM. Firstly, your reaction to what is going on with the national dialogue. I think you would have noted that some foundations have pulled out because they are not happy with how it's being conducted, the preparations thereof, to be specific. And also your detailed response to what is happening with that Russian vessel that is stuck in Cape Town. Apparently, the personnel there does not have a passports, therefore they were not allowed to disembark. Just the MK comment on that. And also a reaction, a response rather, to a series of allegations that have been made by your former Secretary General, Floyd Shivambu. He could be making another allegation as we speak. But most importantly, the one that money just gets taken from MKP accounts monthly and nothing is being done, that he is the one that tried to sound alarm and was probably ejected from the party for that reason. Finally, and apologies for asking so many questions, just give your own reflection of yourself, because there seems to be a sentiment that as an official opposition, MK has given a rather poor account of itself, particularly in Parliament. We've seen a recent blunder where the caucus did not understand what it was voting for, and any other issue that you have had to handle in Parliament. As to how have you done so far in your own assessment?
No, thank you very much. My name is Lunga, and I'm from the Mail and Guardian. Spokesperson, I think this one will involve yourself. Maybe you will help me assist in answering this. I just want to find out if the leadership did discuss, because from what I was told by some sources is that there should have been a discussion in regarding your behavior and Ms. Duduzile Sambula Zuma in the national officials meeting on how they go forward. And just maybe to ask on the chair to say, has there been any disciplinary hearing against the two names that I've mentioned here? Thank you very much.
There's another question.
Oh, that one.
Chair, there's still another question. Another two.
Okay, mine, it's only two questions. My name is Diseto from PEM News. The first one is the use of South African flag during Mr. Jacob Zuma's visit in Morocco drew so much attention. Even the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, on behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa, strongly protested the use of South African national symbols. But it constitutes an abuse of existing protocol and decorum and undermines official bilateral relations between the Republic of South Africa and the Kingdom of Morocco. So my question is that, was it a mistake that the flag was on display, or the president knew, or the former president knew what he was doing by displaying the flag of South Africa? And then the second one, the national convener of Maibuye Africa says he's still a member of the uMkhonto weSizwe party. So I believe if it was just an ordinary member, you could have dealt with the situation rapidly. Is he still a member or not? Oh, okay, no, it's fine.
I'm Itumeleng from the Citizen. With all due respect, I would like to know why now? I mean, Floyd Shivambu has been making all sorts of statements and the situation has been tense for some time. Why act now? And on the Morocco issue, it looks like the South African government does not have an issue on MK policy, but the issue is the flag. Will the MKP continue to raise that South African flag, or you think you'll stop? Thank you.
They own the flag.
You said you're from the Citizen, say? Okay, I'm sorry I can't see you because Bamile na my camera, yeah. We asked comrades. No, sorry, you're not comrades. I forgot. The flag belongs to us. Now, I don't know where this story comes from that the flag belongs to government. No, it doesn't. The state is us, right? So next time around, when we talk about this one, Bani, my peace, yeah, but my peace, my bigger, my fees are so young. Okay, no, sorry, won't all them put. When I'm next time, you'll find me carrying a flag in my car. Are you going to have a problem with it? Dispute that and say, why am I having my country's flag in my car? Yeah, I set for my line, so right. Now, there's the question from, I can't remember who it was, about the money being stolen or siphoned. Was it Melen Guardian? But the question is this. The meeting of national officials sits every second week. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we sit 2 times a month. I think that's what it says. Then you have a chief executive officer in the form of somebody that we call a secretary general. Sits for months in the position and does not report to this collective, this leadership, to then say, hey, there's money that is disappearing every month to the tune of about, I think he branded something like 7 million a month, all right? Now, and this is exactly, it is at the center of leadership responsibility and administrative responsibility, this point that I'm raising, right? Okay, suppose we were too ugly for him to report this thing, this stealing, right? And maybe intimidating or something. So why not report a crime with the police? Because this is stealing. We're talking about stealing here, right? So how come we are not reporting this theft with law enforcement agencies to then say there's money that is being stolen by somebody in MK, and so on and so it goes, and you're not doing that. Now, anybody, including our new SG here, once you're a Secretary General, you also bear something called the fiducial responsibility, which means, amongst other things, all these other matters of financial management, they also are within your purview and you need to report on a regular basis on them, right? You carry policy responsibility when it comes to that. So for me, and I think for us actually, it's quite strange that this thing gets said after some months. It must have been taking place or something, but it's not reported to us, it's not reported and registered with the police. So something is wrong at that particular level, but also the Treasurer General will also shed some light on this, because we have just, if I'm not mistaken, we've just gone through an audit. We've just gone through an audit and we're still attending to some few outstanding issues from an auditing point of view. And I keep on asking him, where's the 7 million? TG, Muplo 7 million. And it doesn't come up, all right? So how come you have this audit outcome, which is conducted quite elaboratively right across the organization, but it doesn't pick up the stealing? Now, Lama auditors, now, in a way, because at the center of auditing, it's also finding out mishaps and everything else about issues of finance and financial management. So for me, that's an anomaly, but perhaps I will still be further educated about this thing. Somebody said something about accountability, the trip and whatever. You see, ladies and gentlemen, now, there is no way that your company, ENCA, will find out that you are in Zambia without the knowledge of your immediate supervisor, your top executive management structure. There's no way. Now, when you talk of accountability, because sometimes the accountability, is the manner of doing things and reporting accordingly. So in this instance, you can't be outside the borders of the country without necessarily declaring that you are indeed there and you're actually sanctioned by the organization, even if you are, what do you call this thing? I want a jowl or something. We keep healing, even if that is the case, you still have a duty to report to a structure that you belong to, that between this day and that day, I will not be around the country, I'll be outside, right? So, and that's the issue about accountability. Now, you are saying, for those of us that were in government and for the things that did not work out there at policy level, policy implementation level and so on, we are not taking accountability. We're not taking accountability about it. We have never said that we are not taking accountability. And part of the reason why we are moving in the manner in which we do is because we've seen things, we've experienced them. So we know what works and what doesn't work, right? So it is just one of those natural cause of action that if you're on a path that you think is working and you discover that, hey, further down the line, this thing is not working, change course. So, so when you can't stand here, when I'm not, and say, because we're viewing the current policy framework in a different way now than the time when we were there. So it means we're not taking accountability. I think you're probably misreading this thing, the way I see it. But nevertheless, and I'm sure we are now convinced that we are not what you think we are. The question of the NDC, perhaps somebody will, TG, I would ask you to come in also on the question of just the financial things stand, particularly because now, if somebody tells me that the national disciplinary process had taken place, and that report is forthcoming to this particular collective of the leadership. So, as and when we are ready to make an announcement with regards to that, we'll certainly do that. But at this stage, the process is underway and there is a report that is forthcoming towards the national leadership. Comrade TG, please do come across.
Sanbonani and greetings. I think the former SG wanted to say he left us with a debt of 28 million. That's the mistake he made. From where we are sitting, comrades and colleagues, in terms of finance, we appointed Nduma Consulting Company that is qualified chartered accountants and auditors so that we can have an independent view in terms of our finance before an AG comes in. That was done. Indeed, we do have some findings at any other auditing. Remember, the auditing, the purpose of auditing is for continuous improvement so that we can have proper system in place, particularly that we are the new party. We do have some findings that is more focused on our bookkeeping than really to say there's any form of corruption. And it needs to be highlighted that I did not actually to respond in such allegations. Chair was forcing me on a daily basis. Saying, I don't want to entertain allegations because the person that is coming with the allegation was fully accountable for the Treasurer's office for the past 5 months. Unless where I'm sitting, he did something, he was able to hide it very well. So from where we are sitting in terms of auditors, we have no any major findings that are there, but we do have areas where they're of concern for improvement for bookkeeping. Thank you.
I think thereabouts closes it, unless if there's anything else, because we respond to everything. We're always ready. Yeah? Oh, the head of presidency was reminding me on the issue of the flag. I think I'd want him to respond, because this misconception about the flag and how it was, I mean, from the last time I checked, President Zuma didn't carry a flag in his bag when he flew to Morocco.
Yeah, thanks, spokesperson. I think we'll have to close on this thing of a flag at one stage. DERCO only responded yesterday after the National Executive Committee meeting of Kwagogo. We've been back from Morocco for almost 2 weeks. The only person who was making noise is the Secretary General of the 40% party. Now, we only answering because it seems like South Africans are concerned about their national symbol. Not because DERCO is making noise, because DERCO has a responsibility to confront the USA, and they're not doing that. They're monitoring the movements of President Zuma. We've got a vessel from Russia, a BRICS partner, that can't refresh in Cape Town. But people who are here in this country, illegal immigrants, are roaming the street every day. Now, South Africa is leaderless in the international community. President Zuma has taken it upon himself to fly the South African flag very high where it belongs to be. Now, so that we don't get asked these questions all the time, in the next 2 weeks, President Zuma is in Ghana. South African flag will fly there. Before the end of the year, President Zuma will be in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Countries that South African government does not have relations with, because they are saying they took power through military actions. MK says they took power for revolutionary reasons, therefore they must be supported. Now, when we go there, we are closing a vacuum in the continent. There's a vacuum. Now, when we go there, President Zuma is not representing his personal interest or a narrow MK party interest. It's an interest of the country. And the country has a symbol, which is a flag. So when we go into those countries that don't have a relationship with South Africa, the national flag will rise high, the MK party flag will be on the table. So we carry two flags. And we wish to encourage every South African as they travel throughout the world, artists, players, private citizens, to please carry the South African flag high. We need to close the space. That's all. I think we won't be talking much responding to DERCO about the flag. Our interest is not in DERCO. It's with the people of South Africa carrying the flag whenever they go, because the vacuum is too huge. President Zuma can't close it alone in the international space. Thank you.
I'm going to call upon President Zuma to say a couple of words. If you will stand as members, please.
Sanibonani. Thank you. Kuthiwa nginibingelele nje kuphela. No. Ngiyanibingelela bandla siyajabula ukuthi sibonanile. Ngiyajabula ukuthi nibuzile imibuzo yonke nayithola zonke impendulo. Ngimangalile ke mina mangizwa obaba laba nomama kuthiwa benza njani konje balalela indaba sebeyixoxa. Okay, yeah. Bebuza indaba yeflag. Ngithuke kabi. Ukhona umuntu ongazi South Africa ukuthi i-flag of any country belongs to the citizens of that country. Khona bengazi lona. Nani impela nje niyawubuza nje lo mbuzo serious. Awukwahleni bu. Every country has a flag with its color. Every citizen owns that flag. It's not a government. Not a government. Government uthola likhona lapho. Nani impela niyabuza nje. Awunangidumaza. Hawu bakwethu. In any way, thank you very much for coming. We thought in our meeting, kufanele sibe nalesikhathi nje ke sithi ukuxoxa. Nanibuze nathi siphendule njalo njalo. Kumnandi ke ukuba nani. Inkinga nje ukuthi sengathi nina ngesinye isikhathi manibuza imibuzo yenze ngibona hawu ukuthi bahlala la eSouth Africa. Abayiboni ukuthi iyashintsha eSouth Africa. Ayishintshi bakwethu. Nithuleleni nini. Nithuleleni ayishintshi. Awusho yini ngashintshi ake ngibuze wena ke manje. Yini ngashintshi. Khuluma. Nangeseyifihla. Banda siyabonga. Okwambe ukubonga nje siyabonga ukuthi sibe kanye nani namhlanje. Sophinda sibe kanye nani njalo nje. Nazi kahle ukuthi iSouth Africa iyashintsha. Ungakuboni lokho okwakhe. Uyosala ngapha komfula thina sesingaphesheya. Akunjalo. Yeah, ngiyajabula ke futhi ukuthi nazi insizwa nentombi abashasha yazi ukuthiwa hayi lo xosha abantu njalo nje akuzele uzodlala thina la umudlala sidlala thina sithatha iSouth Africa ingakho nje singeke size elokuzeni econference ene imali zabelungu ezithi votela lowa ngeke masihlangana uzwa kuthiwa sihlangene manje kobe ngiyana lento kade ngisho kuyobe kuyithi sihlangene sizothi how are we taking our party forward bese silungisa lokho nje uma ungezwe emadlebeni soda awugudlukeke wena asinandaba sikusho futhi lokho futhi nenhlanhla ngoba bangikhuza ngabe sengixosha abantu abaningi ngabe ngakhuzwa lezi labaholi labathi awume kancane solungisa siyabonga ama-comrade ukuthi nibe khona. Thank you very much. Nazi ukuthi we are building a party. We are just 1 year, few months. That's 1 year, few months. We are building it. Amanye ezinye izinto okufanele ngabe senzela senzanga ngamabomu. Futhi sasafuna ukubona ukuthi kunjani. Ngazi nje ukuthi yithi laba singeke siyaba abanye abantu. Sohlala sinje. Siyajabula. Ninake bafowethu nodadewethu. Nisho nje ngelinye ilanga ukuthi hawu siyajabula ukuthi uMkhonto weSizwe wafika bakwethu. What? Ingathi wena weSizwe. Wena sis. Huh? Ungabe nesibongo? Mkhobo. Wakwashelwa ngelinye ilanga. Huh? Thank you very much, Bagwethu. Siyabonga.